وابتغ فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا وأحسن كما أحسن الله إليك ولا تبغ الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين. Rather seek the reward of the hereafter by means of what Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has granted you, without forgetting your share of this world, and be good to others as Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has been good to you. Do not seek to spread corruption in the land, for Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala certainly does not like the corruptors. While speaking about the incident of Qarun in the Qur'Ānic Gems, who was a member amongst the Ummah, amongst the nation and people of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings in this particular verse of the Quran and advises وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. So Qarun had a lot of wealth, the treasures of which many men would be carrying just the key to them. So he was a multi-millionaire, billionaire of his era and of his time. So speaking about the wealth that he had and what intellect that he would refer his amassing of the wealth to, rather than referring it to the grace and bounty and fadl of Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal, he would say, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. It's my intellect, my knowledge, my understanding, my business plan, etc., that has come to play, and everything is going as I wanted, and I have got this wealth. It is not something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wal-'iyadhu billah has given me. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse then mentions وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ, that whatever wealth Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you in this world, with that seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by seeking the hereafter. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you an amount of wealth and that is beyond your day-to-day needs, you've got your savings, you've got your investments, you've got your businesses, your day-to-day needs are seen to, etc., and you still have a lot of wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, from whatever Allah has given you, take out some and spend it in the path of Allah in a noble cause for the hereafter. On one occasion, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered his family members to slaughter a sheep and give the meat out in the path of Allah amongst his friends, relatives, and the poor Sahaba radiallahu anhum. On returning, he was asked as to whether the distribution had been done. They said, yes, everything has been given out. We just left one piece here for you so that you can also enjoy from the sheep that we have slaughtered. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, in reality, what is left is what you've sent forth by giving out in charity. And this here, you're going to be answerable for because we are consuming it. So the amount of wealth that we utilize for our own benefit, luxury, etc., all of that we will be answerable for. But what we give out in the path of Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal, that is the real investment. Everyone is speaking of different sorts of investments nowadays, and unfortunately so many of them are just coming to a crash after a year or two, and some after 10, 15, 20 years. But the real investment that is guaranteed for us and which will not crash if we keep on the course of the right path and the guidance of the Quran and Sharia, we will see the rewards of these investments in the hereafter, to an extent that we may also regret how I wish we would have invested more. Imagine saying one subhanallah to that person who is in his grave. He values our one subhanallah far more than anything else that he could afford at that time. So we have some time, we have some life left within us, we have some wealth. Anything we can do for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should give it out and invest in the hereafter. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Yes, your worldly needs, you should also see to your food, your drink, your clothing, dwelling, your house, you take care of your children, your family, all of that. After that, whatever you need, spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَحْسِن كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Be generous like how Allah has been generous to you. Be kind and do good like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been kind and done good to you. Be generous to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to our neighbors, to our family members, our relatives, our community members, and the Muslims around the globe. Let us be kind to humanity. Let us be kind to even non-Muslims. Be kind to even the creatures and animals of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We find that in the ahadith there are various incidents that speak about certain people who had taken care of a dog. For example, a man had fed some water to a dog, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him entry to paradise. And in the same line, a certain woman who used to be a prostitute fed some water to a dog, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave her and granted her entry to paradise simply because of being kind and generous to these creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet on the other hand, there was a woman who had imprisoned a certain cat of hers, and she did not fulfill the rights of the cat by giving her food timeously, water, drink, etc. And neither did she leave the cat alone to go and survive and eat and fulfill its belly with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created from the various insects that go about, and the cats would have enjoyed or eaten from there. So she was put into hellfire because of that. So we need to be kind, courteous, generous and good to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muslims, non-Muslims, humans, animals, etc. We should be kind to every single person around us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends and concludes the verse by saying, وَلَا تَبْغِي الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do not spread mischief on the surface of this earth, through corruption, through bribery, through your connections, etc., putting others into harm, and hitching the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the system that is placed for the benefit of mankind, etc. Inna Allah la yuhibbul mufsidin. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like those that cause corruption and mischief on the surface of this earth.